Two balls and a strike to count on Taylor. Reyes fires, swinging a drive, deep left field. This is one back. Walk the ball. Chris Taylor.
What's up, everybody? Welcome into DodgerHeads, presented by DodgerBlue.com, part of the Blue Wire Podcast Network. We're back for a couple more episodes before the new year. I'm kind of stuck in moving purgatory, so we thought we were going to wait till next week, but here we are. Today I'm joined by Daniel Starkand, Scott Geirman, and we are talking about a rumor that popped up over the last few days involving Bryan Reynolds of the Pirates. Now, this might be the one move that I end up getting right from my offseason predictions. I predicted, or I advocated for trading for Bryan Reynolds, but John Morosi reporting that if the Pirates do trade Reynolds, that they're looking for at least one top starting pitcher. He mentioned Bobby Miller of the Dodgers as the type of guy that the Dodgers might be interested in. Daniel and Scott, Daniel, I'll start with you first. Bobby Miller, is that too high of a price for Bryan Reynolds?
For me, it is. Like, I'm definitely interested in Reynolds. I think he fits what the Dodgers need right now. Like, he'd give them, an outfield bat, switch hitter, which you always like. Probably can't play center field. Like, the defensive metrics in center field are really bad. So he's a corner guy. So I'm very interested in Reynolds, but to me, not at the price of Bobby Miller. Like, I think, Miller's upside is very high. And he could reach the majors as soon as this season. So it's not like you're talking about a guy that's 3-4 years away. So to me, I'm interested in Reynolds, but I'd rather, go with a different type of package. Like, let's throw in Ryan Pepiot, Michael Busch, who both are very good prospects, but not necessarily the top tier. I'd rather create a package around guys like that as opposed to Miller.
Now, Scott, I know you're afraid to say you are interested in trading Bobby Miller, but let me phrase it this way. You are more interested in moving Bobby Miller for Bryan Reynolds than I think Daniel and I are. Where do you come down on sort of this type of package?
So it's definitely an interesting conversation. I know Bobby Miller's we've seen his stuff. We know how, explosive he can be, and he is. But there's some slight concerns just with honing in his ability, to really lock in on the strike zone. But sure, young pitchers, they'll absolutely do it. But I think people don't understand how good Bryan Reynolds has been for, a little bit. He kind of broke out 2019, but he's had over 125 WRC plus for 3 of his 4 seasons in the bigs. And he's under team control for a few years, and we'll get into that. But I definitely think it's a conversation that isn't as crazy as people think.
Yeah, no, look, I'm with you on Reynolds. Reynolds is he's a polarizing guy. As Daniel said, he can't play center field. The defensive metrics say that. Now, could the Dodgers, with elite positioning that they have, could they maybe make it work with him in center field? Possibly, but let's just pencil him in as a potential answer in left field. You mentioned the switch hitting, which is good. He's interesting because he's a guy that wasn't a huge top prospect, and then he broke out. And so you have sort of two camps of people. You have camps of people that are still skeptical of the breakout and wondering if there's a little bit of smoke and mirrors. Are we talking about an elite guy in Bryan Reynolds, or are we talking about just a good to very good type player? So I think where you fall in that debate is gonna go a long way. For me, I think part of the reason I would not want to part with Bobby Miller is because when you look at the Dodgers rotation, they don't have a ton of long-term answers at starting pitcher. They have a bunch of guys who are going to be free agents in the next couple of years, including Kershaw, Urias, and Buehler. Obviously, Syndergaard on a 1-year deal. So you've got Miller, you've got Stone, you've got Pepiot, those types of guys that you need 2 or 3 of them probably to really fit and hit for this roster to make sense. And so, Daniel, I think I'm with you. If I could do a package around guys like Pepiot, Michael Busch, even Andy Pages, who's a little bit further away from the major leagues, I think I would try and, can we package 2, maybe even 3 guys in that tier for a Reynolds type player? Scott, would you be more or less interested in that type of package?
It just all depends what you want to deal from with one. I'm really high on Gavin Stone. I think you guys are too.
Yeah.
We know how good he will be. It just quantity over one top end quality for me is just where I'm kind of battling. I really am interested in Bryan Reynolds. I think the team control aspect. I think that if they were to do that deal and see his production and fit into the Dodgers lineup, I think that would be wonders. It would fit a need at a corner outfield spot that they could lock in for multiple seasons, wouldn't have to worry about it. And I think in that time period, they might be able to replenish that, Bobby Miller type with someone else.
Yeah, Bryan Reynolds not set to be a free agent until 2026. So 2024, 2025, and I believe maybe even 2026. I'll have to double check on that. Would be
you skipped 2023, so it's 3 years.
Yeah, sorry. I'm looking at Fangraphs, and they have him arbitration eligible starting in 2024. Oh, I got it, because he's already signed a little bit of a contract.
Yeah,
2
so
years,
it's through his
$13.5 million.
age 30 season. So
Yeah.
it's a you know who he will become, or like he is now. You know what his peak will be. So I think it's, for me, that would be, I'd do that deal. Yeah, I would.
So he did sign a 2-year, $13.5 million deal in 2022. So 2023 will be the second year of that deal. So the reason I mention that is because we know with the latest Trevor Bauer news, the Dodgers are reportedly right up against it. So fitting $6.75 million into their luxury tax deal, that actually might be a deal breaker.
Yeah, I mean, we'll have to see how the Bauer stuff plays out. Obviously, if they release him, if they try to trade him and try to at least unload some of that money, or if they just say, we're going to go over the luxury tax, like you said, right now, they really can't make any other moves at this point if they're set on staying below the luxury tax. So hopefully, with this Bauer news, they'll shift courses there and say, hey, at this point, we have to go over. Like, we'll reset another year. But for me with Reynolds, where I kind of am reluctant to give up a Bobby Miller type, it comes down to position for me. Like, if Reynolds, with the bat he has, which is an above average, like really good bat, if he could play a premium position, like if he was a shortstop, if he was a center fielder, if he was a catcher, which the Dodgers obviously don't need, but those are the premium positions. Like, to me, a left fielder that's an above average bat, you could find those pretty much anywhere. Like, Trayce Thompson, the Dodgers got him for nothing last year, and he had almost the same WAR as Reynolds in half as many games. And I'm not expecting Trayce Thompson to replicate that. Let me be clear. But I just think you could find a power left fielder basically anywhere. Like, I'm not giving up someone with the upside of a Bobby Miller. Like, you're not going to find a prospect that throws 102 that projects to be a future ace, like off the street. So that's kind of where I land. I do think Reynolds is a good player, and I like I already said, I would be interested, just not for Bobby Miller.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. I think, whether he's a left fielder or a center fielder is going to be the ultimate determining factor, because there is a positional value that comes with being a center fielder. And so, again, that's why I'm with you. I would rather trade from a guy, the types like Michael Busch, Ryan Pepio, who are highly rated prospects, but the ceiling on them is much lower. I mean, Michael Busch, honestly, like Michael Busch offensively is probably good to very good, sort of in that same tier. That's sort of his ceiling. Ryan Pepio's ceiling is probably like a number 3 starter. And so I would much rather trade those guys. Andy Pages, where the variance is so much higher because of his swing and because of where he is. Again, the ceiling for Pages might be higher, but I would much rather trade out of that than, like you said, Daniel, trade from a guy who has already made a few AAA appearances, who could be in the major leagues this year, and who has a ceiling of an ace. Scott, I'll let you get the last word here on Bryan Reynolds and kind of where you would land the plane on this conversation.
Yeah, so we'll round about. I'll give this to Daniel, man. He made hell of a little segment, man. That was great. Yeah, you've brought me back. Yeah. But so if you're dealing from more of your prospect depth there within your guys in your top 100, I think Dodgers have like 6 or 7 of them up there. Michael Busch, for me, kind of feels like Willie Calhoun a tiny bit, but with way better defense, just kind of a tweener, doesn't really have a spot. So if you're able to deal from that depth, and that's the way you can go, I think if you're able to fill that middle ground, not deal from the top end, keep Cartaya, keep Bobby Miller, Vargas, those guys up there, you're able to do it, give them more quantity. I think the Pirates might bite, but he's on a cost-friendly thing, so they probably have no reason to move him. So if the Dodgers can move from that depth, it's kind of, I don't think there's any reason to move them unless they get really overwhelmed. There will be some team out there that's willing to do it, though. I just don't know if it'll be the Dodgers.
Yeah, we'll see. And again, part of the reason we're having this conversation is because, weirdly enough, Bryan Reynolds demanding a trade. And so whether or not the Pirates decide they want to respond to that request or demand is kind of the impetus is on them to decide what they want to do. But again, the Pirates can ask for Bobby Miller. They can ask for Toronto's top pitching prospect. Whether or not they end up getting those types of guys remains to be seen. That's Daniel. That's Scott. My name is Jeff. As always, we appreciate you joining us here on Dodger Heads, presented by DodgerBlue.com. Make sure you check out Daniel and Scott on social media. You can find their Twitter handles right there. And as always, go Dodgers. See you next time.